That's so retrograde. Minis.
Mercury governs all things, including grammar. And of course, Mercury retrograde is the most famous grammatical error that you can find. People say Mercury in retrograde. But what retrograde means, it refers to emotion. So it basically means Mercury moving backwards. So when we say Mercury in retrograde, what we're saying, Mercury in moving backwards. It makes no sense. But people who don't really fully understand like the mechanics of what that means use the term in retrograde because it's so commonly used, which is so Mercury retrograde. Error be like the thing that's on everyone's t-shirts or whatever.
Sure. So the astrological forecast for this time has been projected to be quite tumultuous.
I know,
really,
what's happening?
September, it was really put on our radar that things were going to start getting kind of wild starting in September.
So first of all, Mercury is retro. It's in this exact moment as we're recording, it's in its shadow, it's in its retro shade. And then it'll be retrograde October 13th through November 3rd. And then it'll station direct on November 3rd. And then stay in its retro shade while we tally the votes. No fun. First of all. Second of all, Mars is still retrograde. Mars has been retrograde. Mars shall stay retrograde until mid-November. And then we get into eclipse season. So that's just a couple things. We are in the throes of such tumultuous astrology. And it is all building up, yes, to the Pluto return, which you mentioned. And we have, Uranus is still in the sign of Taurus, which the last time that happened was World War II. Now, I'm not saying therefore it will be World War II again, but it gives you a sense of how long ago it happened and how tumultuous of a time it was then. We are also going through a Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn. So if I break it all down into English, basically, first of all, what I would say is that in retrograde periods, you cannot rely on what you're being shown. And so the way things are playing out now.
I said that.
Real talks. Yes. Yes. The way things are showing up now, it's all fucking TBD, if you know what I'm saying. Like, we shall see. I am very pro-vaccine. I am very encouraging of vaccines. I would never encourage anyone to take a vaccine that was made public during a Mars retrograde or created during a Mars retrograde. Because the problem is we are investigating with not enough data. Now, that's just like a scientific statement that would work, but astrologically is where I'm coming from when I say that. Yeah. Again, very pro-vaccine, just to be perfectly clear. But we are dealing with a pandemic, and we are dealing with a president who is like, don't worry about COVID. It's no big deal, especially when you're in a fancy hospital being monitored, yada, yada. But the upshot of this is that there's a lot of confusing data. And what Uranus, let me just speak to Uranus and Taurus for a moment, what Uranus and Taurus, and it's at early stages of that transit. But what it does is it challenges us as a society to look at what and who we value. Right? And the way that it challenges us is by creating surprises and upsets that force us to pick a damn side, to pick a lane, and we are seeing that happening across the board, across countries, with populations that are marginalized. We're also seeing that with the activism of women. Because Taurus is a sign that, is associated with Venus and with women in society, our role in society. And there's so much I could say about that, but I don't want to go off too far. So there's this kind of values-based conversation that's happening socially. And then with all this Capricorn Mishigas, what we've got is this kind of sense of overwhelming, burdensome fear and work to be done. And that's from the populace. Well, the kind of the top, the hierarchies of power are consolidating their power. And within all of this, the Mercury and Mars retrogrades are really challenging us as individuals to figure out what we think, what we believe, to say something, to listen wisely, and that means kind of sifting through lots of propaganda right now. There's, and that we will see more of with the eclipses in the Gemini Sagittarius polarity later in 2020. So if you're thinking, oh, 2020 is going to be over, it'll get easier. No, don't be ridiculous. Of course not. None of these problems will magically go away because there's like a new year. You know what I mean? And with the Pluto return, there's going to be more and more pressure on all of us to participate. So this is a moment for really looking at what have you learned? What are you doing? What do you still need to learn?